MIDA, MDEC, Khazana, IRDA, and many other agencies, and of course, many people who are on the call today were very directly responsible. So very excited to be on this call. And I will just share my personal experience and share a little bit about what, obviously COVID has done, what organizations have to now look to do, and how does a organization, and more importantly, governments work in this very complex business universe in which we all live today. So, as everybody knows, nobody was prepared. One does know that COVID happened, and it basically threw everybody off gear. And in doing so, what has happened is everything has changed. Everything will change. And when we completely come out of COVID, which might happen 12 months from today, maybe 24 months from today, we will be doing many things very differently, whether it is managing skills, retaining skills, acquiring new talent, or whether it is investing in new industries, new technologies, whether it is looking at new government policies, government incentive programs, or for that matter, structures of organization. All of it is going to change. Every industry is going to change. And what we've interestingly found out when we did some great research in the last 24 months in particular, that these were the 8 reasons why both governments and companies were finding it difficult to grow. And it's very obvious, big mega trends have changed. You need to monitor those. Compression of value chain. Every piece of the value chain is being disrupted. So the way we did business pre-COVID will not be the way we'll do business post-COVID. So how do you make new economic zones attractive? How do you make new innovation hubs attractive? Will be very different. What worked in the past will not work now. For example, I remember when we came to Iskandar, we had a fantastic infrastructure. Thanks to all the agencies I mentioned earlier, we got an office that was one of the world's best offices within the Frost & Sullivan empire. And our teams were very excited. But I think moving forward with the disruption, there's a very high chance that we will live in a hybrid world. That means people may or may not necessarily want to come to offices anymore. Now, what does that mean? That means what was an attractive environment is no longer a reason why people will come. Gig economy is happening. Gig is real. People are all over the world, and new ways of engaging with companies are happening. The need for talent, digital talent, is also changing now. And why is this happening? Because of disruptive technologies. And this will continuously happen. The gap between disruption is only going to shorten, not increase, which means what you're seeing today, while it was not driven by human beings, it happened because of a response to a health crisis, has now impacted every part of the business. And so all of us have to be prepared for this big future where, like I said, everything will change. Obviously, one of the things that we saw during COVID was an impact on every industry. So all the traditional industries got impacted, some more than the others. So obviously, those that you see on the right-hand side were impacted a lot more negatively. Tourism, travel, complete disruption, airlines, aerospace industry. On the other hand, industries like the healthcare saw some incredible success. Likewise, ICT industries. You saw companies like Zoom, companies like Verizon, Amazon, Google, all the names that are household names today, saw an incredible growth in their business and business models. But what that tells you is eventually everybody will come out of it, but the speed at which they will come will be very different. The ones on the red will take a little longer. The industries on the left will probably come out a lot faster. But when they come out, it will be completely different. And obviously, within these companies, if you look at the various segments of the work that is done in every company, you will see personal changes, talent changes, hiring policies, hiring incentives will completely change. Okay, retaining people, which is the biggest challenge most companies face today, most governments face today. Hiring the right talent and making that talent available that is digitally enabled is a big part of what governments will have to do in the future. Supply chain, we've seen the disruption of supply chain that's happened. And that's one of the reasons why today many of the companies are not able to be successful, because there's just not enough in the supply chain. And this disruption, we believe, will continue for a long periods of time. So as leaders, whether you are a leader in a government institution or you're a leader in a corporate environment, I think the important thing for everybody to understand is to invest in the future. You cannot be a victim. You have to drive change and be part of that change. So look at the competition. The competitive landscape has completely changed. Your competition today is no longer countries like India or China or Estonia, others. There are many, many countries in the world that are exactly doing what GBS is trying to achieve and Iskandar is trying to achieve from a competitive standpoint. So countries in, for example, Latin America, Colombia, countries like Mexico, Argentina are very aggressive. Countries in the Mediterranean, like Cyprus, Malta, very aggressive. You must benchmark them and convert and see what are things that they are doing to keep themselves in the competitive edge. And they are making some great stride. Of course, Estonia is important, but so are some of the other countries. So I would recommend it needs to. But the most important part is the accelerated digitalization of every business and every government organization that one has to focus on in the future. So where do you go from here? We know that everything is changing, everything has been impacted. So the first thing I would recommend for everybody to look at are the big trends and what will the world look like in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years. Okay, that will be important. And that's what I would recommend you look at moving forward. And that is, look at the areas of connectivity. Look at Brown Chevy Tahoe, CA plate 5BSK 465. Sorry. Details at H. Sorry about that interruption. There was some alert from the police. So you need to make sure that you look at some of these big mega trends and ensure that you're identifying companies that are in alignment with these mega trends. You could also take a concept like innovating to zero. So everybody who comes in Iskandar, Malaysia should be a companies, organizations that are innovating a particular global challenge to zero. What do I mean by that? They should be sustainable. They should make the planet a better place. They should look at things like healthcare. They should look at things like infrastructure. Many of those things will need to be looked at, and you could create an environment that deals with those kinds of situations. Okay. Obviously, what this will also do is these trends will also change the way the enterprises will work in the future. Okay. So for example, there will be areas of convergence that we are going to see, like smart cities, like outcome-based services. So organizations will need to structure themselves to be able to meet the future demands of what governments are going to mandate. We've seen that through COP very recently, including what the individuals would like to do, because today's employee is a very well-educated employee and wants to make sure that there is a purpose for every organization and every government. When there's an alignment, they're happy to come and be part of that. What you also have to understand is not just these big mega trends, but also understand the areas of thematic systems that are being created because of that. We know we are living in a digital world. Our homes are digitized, our offices are digitized, our manufacturing systems are all digitized through IoT 4.0, etc. So what does that mean? We are going to live in a connected world. We will all have multiple devices that are being connected. So how do you create that ecosystem where people can leverage all of these in that environment? And that's where, again, you need to understand those thematic areas and go after companies that are actually building products and solutions around those areas. And those are the potential markets that you need to look at, potential companies in those markets, and make Iskandar an attractive destination, because I totally believe that Iskandar can do that. Obviously, companies that have done it in the last, I would say, 12 to 24 months have seen some significant improvement as far as its impact to society, as well as market cap, and of course, growth in their business. So these are the companies you should be shortlisting and looking to see how you can bring them in the region, because I think there's tremendous potential. We talk about technology, which is a very important element that one has to consider. Yes, we are in a digital world, but digital means many things to many people. So what does that mean? That means, yes, current technologies of AI, let's say blockchain, are now very, very common in every part of the world. Every government, every companies in the world is either involved in it, using it, or planning to use it. But it's not about looking at those technologies alone, but leveraging those technologies to create that differentiation. And that is true for governments as well. Governments have to create, agencies have to create that differentiation and make this a competitive advantage, so you can start to attract people in the region. As far as the global technologies, I would recommend that you don't just focus on existing technologies, but you look at technologies in the future. That means, what are those technologies? And what I'm sharing with you is a list of the global 50 technologies. So look at these technologies, look at companies that are working in this space. We just heard what Facebook did through metaverse. We've just seen Disney saying everything that they will have in terms of experience will be augmented reality, virtual reality, live experiences. How do you work in that environment, both within organizations, for governments, as well as companies? Creating that ecosystem, I think, will be very helpful in the future. And that's why, even for employees, it's not about just customer experience. It's about giving employee an experience. And as you provide that, more and more people will come in. Obviously, companies that are leveraging these technologies have had a huge impact on global economy. So for example, right now it's around $3 to $5 trillion. The expectation is that in the next decade, we will see a $13 to $15 trillion impact because of these. Obviously, these companies that have actually leveraged these technologies have created much, much greater value and delivered a lot of shareholder value, customer value, consumer value in the process. So it is very clear you want to go after those kinds of companies that have been able to offer this. In terms of new careers, there will be a completely new ways in which careers will come up in the future. So for example, with AI, there will be a lot more demand for people with AI background, advanced analytics, big data, LiDAR technologies. So one of the ways to attract people is to be able to provide people with these skills. And of course, in numbers. If you don't have them locally, that's when you need to look at ways in which you can attract people from outside to come and deliver. And like I said, with gig economy, with virtualization, all of these things can be possible, because we do know the mega trend of virtualization is there to stay. Robotics and drones, and I know you're already very advanced in these areas. I know there are multiple drone companies already in the region, but that's an area that will continue to grow in the future. Having people with that talent will be very important. And of course, professionals that are willing and able to work using and leveraging collaborative technologies, of course, will be very powerful. And that's the way business continuity will continue. Now, in terms of skills, this is again something that you will have to look at. Given that there'll be new careers, there'll be new demands, you do need people with very different skills in the future. And some countries like India, Korea, Germany, many countries in the world are putting a lot of emphasis in building those skills. Okay. And for example, with connected living, with urban logistics, robotics, you need people with AI, ML, visualization, big data, machine learning. All of these skills will be required. So your workforce of the future has to be a lot more digital than it has ever been before. And that we as an organization are also looking to do. And obviously, if you're able to do that and increase the digital literacy, then you have the ability to make the destination a lot more attractive, which many other countries in the world will find it very difficult to do. And Malaysia can do it because Malaysia has the educational infrastructure. Iskandar through EduCity has that. So you can do it, but a lot more will need to be done in the future. Obviously, with the way things are going to evolve, we will operate in a world where people will be available 24/7. anytime, anywhere, with any device, any application. So to be able to make that available will be very important. But at the same time, it's also equally important that you manage the data that's generated, security of that data, ensuring that the data remains with people. All of those elements now become very, very critical. So cybersecurity, which is a big challenge most governments are facing now, most corporates are facing today. I talk to companies in the US, and I can tell you some of the largest companies, especially in aerospace defense area, tell me that on a daily basis, they get 1 million pings where people are trying to break into their system. So this is a very important issue, something that you should bring as a part of your value proposition and pitch to potential customers. Obviously, in the future, what we're going to see is organizations are going to go through massive changes as well, both structurally as well as in their mindset. So, for example, in the past, they were very cautious. There was a hierarchical system. Things were in silos. I can tell you we were very, very similar in that particular time, look and feel. But what we're going to see in the future is nimble, intentional, agile, data driven. This is what organizations are going to go through in the future. Okay. Obviously, what you will need is digital leadership. That means in the future, every department, whether it is a finance department, marketing department, any functional area you have within the organization, you will need to bring in digital leadership. And you should be able to create an attitude of people that are dynamic, that can make things happen and change and restructure in the shortest possible time. Obviously, companies that have done it, and we've researched many, many companies, they have seen incredible performances in terms of their shareholder value and impact to the business. Now, obviously, organizations are going to change, but it also means that individuals, leadership will also need to change with this new world in which we're going to live. So integrity and aspiration is important. And likewise, the mindset of both organizations and governments also have to change. And what that means is you have to be a lot more transparent, you have to be a lot more realistic, and in the process, you have to inspire your team in this context. Likewise, from a growth perspective, you have to look into the future because history will not let you move forward. History will only get you to be a lot more victimized. So in the past, we were talking technology and data, people, processes. Now we're going to look at strategic partnerships, acquisitions. We'll have to look at new ways of doing business, new business models, new products, and all of these to be completely digital and digitally enabled, right? So one of the things that I recommend to both governments as well as corporations, both here and worldwide, is to look at, some of the big issues and break your team into 3 different components. One that handles the current crisis, second that focuses on the future and growth, and the third one is looking at both digital transformation inside the company and outside the company. Okay. What is also important, what we're going to see in the future is cross-functional teams that are easy to organize, where you can leverage skills. Teams got to be very agile. This will be a requirement. And of course, empowered to make autonomous decisions. And I think you have to be prepared. The future will be virtual, will be hybrid, and you will be working with people remote. And that is what's going to happen in every industry, whether it's healthcare, whether it's ICT, whether it's professional services or a manufacturing site. Many of these things are going to go remote. Obviously, the ability for organizations to transform digitally will be very important. Their discrete functions will have to be optimized as well. And the good news is a lot of platforms, a lot of tools, a lot of technology today is available and can be used in seamless way within an organization. Okay. Now, in terms of the frameworks, I think every government and corporation should look at obviously human capital and make that as an area of focus. Revenue engine. So look at all the different channels that you have, sales channels, marketing channels, all operating and working together under one goal and agenda and aspiration. Likewise, when you look at operations, whether it's manufacturing, accounting, bring it all together, finance, and then IT, OT combination is what you want to bring together. And once you're able to do that, then you will achieve what I think is the overall optimum performance of the organization and make it more adaptable. Obviously, in the past, Before COVID, it was all about business flows, stocking of products and services. Now everything is moving into a product and a service model. So think about it from that perspective. In the future, and this is again, you have to think about is digital delivery, and it will be outcome-based models that will come in. So when you look at it from that perspective, those are some of the incentives that can be provided to organizations. So in conclusion, what I would suggest, to all the people who are, who are creating the policies and frameworks and in tax incentives, let me tell you, those are important, but those are today not the differentiators that we used to see in the past. And what that means is you will have to benchmark what you are doing with other agencies on a worldwide basis. I mentioned a few countries that I've been working with myself. Look at it from that perspective and then see how you can differentiate yourself. And one of the ways to do that would be to also work on policies that will help talent stay in the country for long periods of time. This is very important. And once you're able to do that, those people will be able to drive the ecosystem in the process. Okay, so that's what I recommend. My personal experience, and for those who are thinking of Iskandar, I would strongly encourage you to consider it. As I say, I've worked with more than 78 countries in 78 different agencies, and I will say Frost & Sullivan chose Iskandar, Malaysia to be its global innovation center. So please consider it. And if there are any questions I can answer for you, our own experiences, which have been great, we would love to do it. So with that, I would like to thank everybody and hand it back to the Masters of Ceremony. And if there are any questions, would love to take those questions now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Arup. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was such an insightful industry insight, really an eye-opener. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen,